The eyes of most self-portraits are afterwardly directed, seeking to be seen, but they may signify inner vision just as keenly. A head in close-up, eyes like dark stars, was rare when Tintoretto painted himself in the 16th century, but it became very common with Romanticism. The self is concentrated in the mind in the eyes, twin wells of feeling and thought. Cogito ergo sum translates as video ergo sum, both in Latin, which I may not pronounce correctly. Let me continue. And what I am may be manifest in my powers of vision. Self-portraiture's special look goes well with this idea of the artist as seer, possessing gifted powers of insight. It is a look popular among the young. Samuel Palmer, as 21, appears charismatically far-sighted, although it is partly the effect of not being able to draw both eyes in focus. And mocked by Picasso in old age. At 91, eyes like mismatched marbles in a primitive mask, one dim and myopic, the other stuck open forever like some dreadful twist of fate. He's halfway between animal and a crazed old totem. There's a little self-portrait drawing by Paul Klee where the eyes are tight shut, so that one deduces that it cannot have been made by looking in a mirror, but must effectively be a self-portrait from within, and quite possibly with sex in mind, for there is orgasmic concentration in the features. But what it enchantingly expresses is this idea that inspiration, vision, imagination, soul, everything that really matters in art, come in the end from within. And an extra quirk is that a humorous Klee can never be accused of self-regard, an old accusation against self-portrayers, for he was not even looking at himself. What these eyes must have seen, what thoughts, what dreams. Klee's self-portrait draws one intensely into his mind without following the usual invitation through the open eyes. A sweet retort to the old line about the souls and the windows, and one remembers that he did not make any distinction between the inner and the after worlds in his work. Art does not render the visible, Klee said. It renders visible. He was speaking mystically, and what is rendered visible in his art is surely, at the very least, his own spirit, lightsome, benign, visionary, intimate, and as comical as this little self-portrait. What the eyes have seen, literally and metaphorically, this is the concern of all art. In this sense, the eyes are the artist's truest emblem and attribute. How perfect that they should also become the crux of an artist's self-portrait, the focal point, the first line of a communication between artist and the viewer. Yet no self-portraitist actually needs to meet our gaze directly to exert continuous pressure to keep our eyes upon this. This is nowhere more apparent than in the etching by Francisco Goya, that speaks as powerfully with the eyes as Botticelli, even though it does not even have the advantage of a tool and never fixes fast or unequivocally upon the viewer. Goya turns slightly out of a formal profile, throwing a sidelong glance out of the picture. The look is withering, as pungently directed outwards as inward. It is an opening shot. It is the etching that with which he prefaced Los Capricos. This volume of prints, unsurpassed in their terrifying visions of human violence and folly, avarice and cruelty. Their writing captions, like the overheard speech of mysterious after-stage commentators, go so far beyond explanation into nightmare that it is often perceived as purely a figment of the artist's tormented imagination, no matter that the voice of the captions declares, "I saw this," or "I was here." Goya originally opened the volume with the deathless image of a man slumped over his desk, the air thronged with bats and evil creatures that might indeed be issuing from his nightmares, and the sleep of reason has been taken as an allegorical self-portrait depicting the source and the modus operandi of all that follows. But Goya replaced it significantly with this likeness of himself as a top-headed man of the world casting a cold eye upon the viewer. It is a acerbic pastiche of the conventional famous author portrait that has prefaced so many books, then and since. The profile puts the self-portrait straight into the third person. There is the author, Senor Goya, his name written below, corresponding precisely with Goya's verbal description of himself throughout as L. author or L. painter. And yet he breaks out of that profile, as if coming alarmingly alive. Facing left, he happens to turn his back upon what follows as if in disavowal. But then again, isn't he rather like the kind of figures who occasionally turn up in the book? Goya may be the maker or the narrator, but he is not above the vileness depicted herein. We always say that in his image of sexual corruption, torture, war crimes, bullfights, Goya is the master of a modern documentary. That whatever he had to say about the Spanish Inquisition or the horrors of the Napoleonic invasions of the early 19th century applies to Afghanistan or Abu Ghraib. The priest lusts, the pedophile rapes. The artist has seen it all and brought it back to us in its absolute horror. But it is very hard to read the tone of Goya's art, to know who is speaking, who saw that, whether the talk is ever straight. Look at the tiling eye. It seems to swivel between there and here, then and now, between immediacy and distance. Pose and eye, taken together, make Goya both an observer and a man observed, the creator, but also the subject. Yet the look is insinuating and deviously incorporates the viewer. That left eye, half obscured by the heavy eyelid and nearly disappearing after view, has you snared in its sights, for you and I are part of this too. That's the end of this chapter. It is a short one, but it is quite interesting. There are two pictures which are not as the usual self-portraits like in oil painting, quite similar, but quite interesting, I would say.